All right, we are now.
We are live.
I think we are live. Yes,
That's cool.
this is about Tobias Hurwitz. Hello, Tobias.
Hello, Rod.
I got your introduction. You're a rocker. You're an educator. You're an author. You're a performer. You're a composer, and most importantly, you're the keeper of the impossible guitar parts with the Baltimore Marching Ravens, or you were. So,
I was about 3 years there.
yeah. So, how are you?
I'm doing fine. It's just another day of quarantine in my basement studio here, teaching some guitar lessons and practicing and recordings and this and that. What I do every day, pretty much all day.
So how did you do? How did you how did you pivot with this whole Zoom and with the virtual thing with COVID and everything?
How's it going?
Yeah.
It's going rather well. I offer lessons via Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, and Jam Kazam. And so I have all the different platforms that people like to use. And I was already doing it before the quarantine even started. So
Hmm.
I mean, students in places like Hong Kong or Canada or California or even Virginia, or just people that don't feel like driving over
Yeah. Hmm.
right around the corner. Um, and so I was already kind of set up to do the online lessons. And when the quarantine hit, it was most people just transitioned over without even really batting an eye at it. And I got a whole lot of new people as well.
Yeah.
It has a few drawbacks, but really it's just about as good as a real person to person lesson.
Hmm.
Um, I think the biggest drawback is you can't play in synchronization simultaneously unless you're on the Jam Kazam platform, which is
I
so.
don't know anything about.
Oh,
You're way ahead of me on the tech bend.
Jam Kazam is a kind of a new platform where they've defeated the latency of other platforms and you can have rehearsals in real time with musicians anywhere you want.
Okay.
And there's no latency.
All right.
It's awesome.
Is it is it easy to get to learn or
It's not that easy to use and it costs $5 a month.
forget it then?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, I pay $5 a month to use it.
Yeah.
But you'd also have to
Yeah, the
eat.
learning curve is the only thing I would be worried and not worried about, but yeah.
Yeah. So the only you got to hook up an Ethernet cable instead of a Wi-Fi. It works better,
Hmm.
and um, and it's really neat because you can make videos of what you do, and you can make recordings with separated multi-track audio of what you do.
Hmm.
You can also there's a thing where you can just jam with people. You can just push like find session, and
Yeah,
at all times,
somebody random.
like you could say like jam real book tunes or sing along songs or
Hmm.
there's just hundreds of different jam sessions going on all the
Yeah,
time.
it's kind of neat the fact that it takes a pandemic for us to find these things like new forms of entertainment, new forms of okay, let's play with somebody in Korea.
Yeah, 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 exactly. It's pretty awesome. I was rehearsing with some band members because we didn't want to get together in person right now, and
Yeah,
it's just kind of cool. It's just fun,
who do you play with now?
I'm playing with a couple of bands. Actually, I'm not playing with. I mean, I haven't done any live gigging this whole time, but
Yeah.
I was doing it before the quarantine stopped.
Hmm.
Playing in a Thin Lizzy tribute called Black Rose, which
Yep.
is
Yep.
here in Baltimore, and a cover rock band called Taboo Tattoo,
Yes.
Beltway Circuit, and also doing some of the kirtan yoga music,
Okay.
and also doing some David Bowie tribute stuff.
Okay.
Just doing original music, just really anything that comes along. I did a little stuff with Center Stage, Pit Orchestra, just
Uh-huh. Are you
um,
still doing the end whistle thing?
no, I'm not still doing the Ent Whistle thing. Uh, that that's not nah. I sort of drifted out of that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a 90-piece orchestra that I was in charge of, and it was fun while it lasted. Gigs,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. So what are you doing yourself these days?
I'm teaching in boom pop, teaching in
Keep
boom pop, and I'm still trying to remnants of the rock band program, the rock band program. So it's like I have one or two bands that I'm coaching. So, but and they're a joy. It's like it's
Great.
essential.
I was doing a little bit of that too, and I had a little bit of video game scoring work that I
Yeah,
did at
yeah.
school, and also running my rock music camp. We
Yep.
plan to have it again in August this year.
Okay, and tell the world about your rock music camp.
Okay, well, it's called Rockstar Jam.
Uh-huh.
Here we're going to be partnering with another school called Lutherville Music School, which some people just call Lutherville Rock School. It's right down the road here in Towson. They're going to
Okay.
host us this summer, and they have a nice facility, and a lot of our rehearsals will now be done with electronic drums and headphones with more control of the sound. And
Mhm.
basically, it's kids of ages 7 through 17 who come together and form bands and write songs.
Mhm.
We make multi-track recordings and YouTube videos and
Wow.
have a nice concert, and we have special guests, and
Okay.
it's a fun program. It's we usually get somewhere around 50 kids or something for the 1 week.
Okay.
It's just a ton of fun to have once a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, do you do any? Do you do covers or is it all original?
Well, their concert is all original.
Okay.
We stress the importance of songwriting,
Good.
and however, we have a lot of cover tune opportunities for them to play. Like we have open mics where
Mhm.
anyone can get up and play anything they want to with anybody they want to. So you have the students playing together, and you have the kids playing together,
Mhm.
and the staff and the kids, and uh, the staff might decide they want to play a song, or any combination of people, and anything from jazz to metal to funk, or and blues. It's whatever anyone wants to play. It's fun.
That's
So
wonderful.
there's lots of we really do both. We do cover tunes and originals,
Uh-huh.
and the classes center upon really learning music, not you know I'm sure as an educator yourself, you realize
Yeah.
that the mere learning of lyrics for songs is not exactly learning music.
Absolutely. In other words, the other part of this is taking just learning your part and learning the tab. That is not being in a band. That is not learning how to do it. There's so much about tab
Right. Well,
that is not the whole thing. It's
or
not the
if you
whole
if
picture.
no matter whether it's tab, or somebody showing you where to put your fingers, or a YouTube video,
Yep.
you we more like try to teach the person how to be independent and to figure things out for themselves
Mhm.
by knowing things like music theory, ear training,
Yeah.
sight reading,
Yeah.
improvisation, the nuts and bolts of music.
How much do you work on sight reading?
We don't work on sight reading in the camp much at all. In,
Mhm.
in my private students, I think all of them pretty much. Well, I guess I got 90% of them reading. There's a certain kind of student who just simply will not read music. They
Mhm.
just hate it, won't do it, say they don't want to do it, and in that case, I don't force them to do it.
Yes.
However, if they're a kid, I first just ask the parents. So, like, do you want them to read music?
Yeah.
Most every parent will say they want their kids to read music.
Mhm.
So, I have a lot of devious methods of getting them to read music, mostly humorous, because, as you know, uh, you're
You get
reading.
away with a lot of stuff when you're humorous about it.
Well, no matter what your level is, it's likely your playing level is higher than your reading level. So,
Yes.
so
Mhm.
suddenly you can play all this. Maybe you can play
Well,
Van.
that's true with everybody. It's not just true of kids. It's
No matter who you are, your playing level is almost certainly higher than your reading level. So when you
yes.
start reading, you feel like you're taking a few steps backwards. And this is a humorous situation, because maybe you could play Eruption 2 seconds ago, but you can't play Mary Had a Little Lamb right
Yeah.
now. And
Uh-huh.
that's just plain funny. So
Yeah.
I've leveraged that to make the sight reading a little more palatable by making it humorous.
Yeah.
Like, I have a little saying. I say, they're like, "Why do I have to sight read?" I'm like, "If you can't read, you bleed, and there's
Yeah. Yeah.
bleeding allowed."
Can't read, you bleed. Yes, you told me that. Yes.
No bleeding allowed.
Yes.
So like, so you have your ways of manipulating people.
You had to use a book or
Well, I
a
use,
method?
yes, I use books. I start with Alfred One.
That's what I used. That's what I learned when I was a kid,
The reason I use Alfred One is
9
because
years old.
Alfred, and I can get Alfred One at half price. So I'm
Okay,
gonna
yeah. Probably
Alfred.
Alfred One back in 1978 was not the same book.
I've got all these vintage Mel Bays and Hal Leonards and
Yeah.
Alfred.
Hmm.
Like, so I get them through like a level one, then I move them on to a really great book by my former teacher David Oakes. This book right here, which is called
Oh yeah.
for Guitar: The Complete Method. After they finish Alfred One, they go to that, and of course, also the real book. The real book is an invaluable reading resource,
Hmm.
or anything they want to read. I mean, I have
Yeah.
students, I got a rare student who just likes to read,
Hmm.
and very, very rarely. Like if I get to go through the whole Oakes book. Have you been through that book, the Oakes
Oh.
book? You
Mm-mm.
have?
I have a he taught he has a classical guitar book though, doesn't he?
Well, no, this is not a classical guitar book. This is a pick style book.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Um,
he has a classical guitar book that I have that I like.
Probably has a couple of different books. I'm sure he has a lot of books, but
Yeah.
this is. But anyway, this book is monstrously difficult towards the end. I mean, it's you're learning 30-second notes, heavy key signatures, changing
Got a
times.
sight read tapping.
But there's no there wouldn't be any. Right. But you're learning. If you can get through the Oakes book, I figure I'll leave you alone for a while.
Okay.
But I get a certain kind of a student who's like, I ask him, well, is there anything what you wish you were doing that you'd like to get into? And I have a certain rare type of student that says more sight reading, like more cowbell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's only very rare people that say that. And in that case, I had one student I've been through something like 10 different sight reading books with.
All right.
Every book you can imagine, even the weirdest.
You remember Arnie Burl?
Which one?
You remember the guy he used to write for Guitar Player magazine, like in the 70s and 80s, Arnie Burl.
I remember that name.
Yeah, he put out probably 50 books. And
Yeah,
he had a really good he had a really good reading book. It was like what everybody else did was they taught you how to read in position, which is important. It is important to play and read in position, but what he did is he went horizontal with it.
Yeah, a lot of these books have those exercises, like play,
Mhm.
for example, on one string, or this is
Yeah,
two strings, or
yeah. So that was like that in the Mick Goodrick book. There's a advancing guitarist that talks about the horizontal stuff.
yeah,
So I think those two books kind of coincided because the Mick Goodrick book was pretty influential, and Arnie put out a method that we teach you how to read that way too. So
yeah. I find a lot of these books, if you get a decent book, they'll probably have a few exercises at least that are like that in the book, not the whole book probably,
Mhm.
but you know. So there's yeah, it's just I in a lesson, what I'll definitely cover a lot of different topics, maybe 5 or 6 topics.
yeah,
I don't overemphasize any one topic like sight reading. I want to keep it in there, but I want it to be a slow and steady build instead of. I mean, there's nothing worse than guitar lessons where they just give you a Mel Bay one or an Alfred one.
yeah,
Guitar lesson is learning these idiotic nursery rhymes.
yeah,
One.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It makes you want to quit.
right. Yeah, it's a great way to make somebody quit guitar. So I don't do that, but I do think it's important.
So how'd you get your start in with the guitar? What's your
Um,
what's your
I got my
story?
start by going to a party, and some guy was sitting there with a guitar. His name was Rick Rutledge.
Okay.
Uh, he played some stuff, and I was happened to be sitting next to him. And I don't really remember how this occurred, but he showed me how to play an E minor chord and an A minor chord. So I was, playing the E minor chord laboriously, and then laboriously going to the A minor chord, And during the months before I saw this guy, I'd be like, E minor, maybe I'll take a finger off, A minor, maybe I'll take a finger off, or maybe I'll add a finger, and that sounds kind of good. Maybe I'll add a finger, well, that one doesn't sound so good, so I'll go. and I would make, this experiment. Maybe I could move the chord. I started just to get better and better at E minor and A minor.
Yeah. Were you self-taught?
What's that?
Were you self-taught? Like, I know you went to MI, which we're gonna talk about, but were you,
Yeah, so
like, when you were in high school? So how old were you when you started?
I started at the age of 14.
Okay, so that's what, 8th grade?
That was in 9th grade.
9th grade? Okay,
Yeah.
9th grade. So when you were in high school, did you study with anybody?
Not really. When I was in high school, I went to a very offbeat high school here in Baltimore called the Baltimore Experimental High School. They didn't have a music program, but I was in a garage band. Like within about 9 months of picking up the guitar, somehow I got in a garage band.
Uh,
And this garage band played my high school dances. And it was almost like I was the music program at my high school, even though I knew nothing about music. I was just some guy that carried a guitar around with me. And it turned out that by default, I was kind of giving a few lessons in entertainment school a little
yeah,
bit.
like me, like I was a kid in town that I had all the Motley Crue riffs down or whatever.
I didn't even know we were all original. We just made up our own stuff.
Yeah.
And we might have played a couple of cover tunes. Like I think I recall playing something by Jimmy Cliff, The Harder They Come.
Yep.
But we were mostly just in blues.
Mm-hmm.
This garage band had the guy that started me on guitar. It was kind of like his band. And we didn't do too bad. We managed to get on the stage at the Preakness in front of like thousands and thousands of people somehow. I don't even remember exactly how we got there, but we ended up with a stadium rocking gig, even if we were just kids. It was pretty cool. And so that's how I got started. Then I did eventually take some guitar lessons. Like I went to Peabody and took a few lessons there from a really great teacher named Roland Raffaelli.
Okay.
Class, and I took rock guitar lessons from Jamie Loritz, who was a national pro. He's a cool guy. He's now in Nashville. And then after that, I did go to GIT, and the maximum they had at the time was a 1-year program.
Who was teaching there then?
Oh my God, it was a who's who. It was just the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Frank Gambale, Joe Pass, Jennifer Batten, Paul Gilbert, Howard Roberts, Tommy Tedesco.
These are all names I'm not sure everybody knows, but I know. I'm a nerd. Yeah. Tommy Tedesco, the Studio Ace. Howard Roberts was he was a studio guy too, but he was really thick in the jazz scene, and I guess he was the guy that started the curriculum.
Howard Roberts, yes, and there was another fellow. Howard Roberts was pretty much in charge of the curriculum at first, and I was there in the year 1986/87.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember
just a year, my senior year of high school. So
it was a great year for the place. I mean, it was just like Joe Pass. I mean, they did a really odd thing with Joe Pass. They would have Joe Pass sitting in a folding chair in the hallway with an acoustic guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone's rushing from class to class, but you're like trying to get your class on time, and you have to run by Joe Pass playing the most amazing jazz guitar you've ever seen. But then after class, Joe Pass is still sitting there playing, and you can go play a tune with him if you can last long enough, because you'd be like, no, not like that. And he'd like fire you in about 3 seconds.
Is he that way?
Oh yeah. So like there'd be a line of us young men trying to play with Joe Pass, and like, so the next guy gets up there and Joe Pass has got a real book on the stand. Okay, pick your tune. And like the guy starts playing, maybe he's playing, I don't know what he's playing. He's playing Take 5 or. And Joe's like, no, not like that. Next.
Yeah.
And so like.
You got to put some of those Joe Pass riffs in there, licks.
Yeah. But Joe Pass was a sort of a really fun guy. And he had this thing he used to do, which would be, anyone could sing anything. You're like, and you go, he could
audiation, yeah.
He could echo back any lick at all that anyone could sing with no rehearsal at all.
Yeah,
He was he was like a tape recorder,
yeah, yeah.
an instant playback machine.
He was a hero of mine. I don't know if I ever told you that.
I don't think you did tell me that.
Because he's actually the reason I started playing bass.
Bass?
Bass, because I was learning how to do
It's like when you put
yeah.
something together like that.
In other
Yeah.
words, and I would be transcribing bass lines because I wanted to play like Joe Pass, like when I was 21.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. As I'm learning all these bass lines, so then when open mic situations opened up, and they always did, I had all this bass stuff down that I was, it was an easy thing for me. I never struggled on bass because I started learning jazz
Well, you're a great bass.
innocently.
Like I remember in the Ravens band, you could read really, really well on the bass.
Thank you.
I'm not super great at reading on bass clef. I do read on bass clef, but I just read like a level 1 textbook kind of thing to take my students through on the bass.
Mhm.
You're like a master at reading bass clef. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Joe, what I'll do is one of these days, I have a cassette tape that I made of Joe Pass lecturing us, which I'll get to you or something. And he talks to us about the caged sequence. However, he didn't call it the caged sequence. He would say, there's 5 basic shapes. You got your C, your A, your G, your E, and your D, and you can play them like major or minor or diminished or augmented. And he would show us that, and you could play a scale out of it, and it could be a major scale, a minor scale, a diminished or augmented. And that was his whole bag.
Yeah.
5 shapes, 4 types.
Yeah.
He had lots of variations, but it was,
And then major, minor, and dominant.
yeah, 5 shapes, 4 types is his thing.
Yeah.
And then he told us that how he learned to play, how he got started, which was incredible. He said that his family was plumbers.
Okay.
Dad would take all the boys to do plumbing early in the morning, except he said, Joe, you got to stay home and be the famous guitar player. Everybody else but him had to go work.
Yeah, and if he didn't practice, he'd get his butt whipped.
However, when his dad got home from work, his dad would put on the radio and he said, you got to be able to play this song before it's over. And if not, I'm giving you a whipping. So that Joe Pass desperately learned to copy instantly so he wouldn't get a whipping. Probably why he could do all that stuff at GIT like that.
That's twisted. That's twisted.
Yeah, it's pretty twisted.
But you have any Paul Gilbert stories?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, Paul Gilbert. Well, he had just graduated from the school, and Paul Gilbert's bag was the easy to pick one.
Yeah, yeah. The outside picking thing.
We have these fast triplet licks. He would have those licks like that, where every pick stroke, it was designed so that you have always the outside shift, never the inside shift, by starting on a particular stroke and having a particular number of notes per string. And he didn't just do that, but that's like what he was into back then.
Well, yeah, no, and that's what he was kind of known for.
He was known for that. I remember I loved GIT so much because it was a 24/7 building. You had a time card. You can go in there anytime you want. And there was a locker big enough for me to hold my guitar in with a lock on it. So I could lock a guitar in there and whatever I needed, and I could jog from my apartment to the school at any time of the night, which to me was always like 3 a.m. or something. I'd be clocking in at like 3 a.m. and going, all the facilities are empty, the computer labs, the ear training labs, the rehearsal rooms. Anyway, so I go in there one night and I sit down in one of the rooms and I start playing some of the amps. In comes Paul Gilbert. And
3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning. He comes in there and he starts, it's like I'm not even there. He just walks over to another side of the room and plugs into a different amp and starts like warming up. And then Billy Sheehan walks in, right? He didn't teach there. Billy Sheehan, you know who that is, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, you think?
Yeah, I know. He walks in, he goes over and he starts playing with Paul Gilbert, warming up, and they start kicking around some classic rock tunes. At that point, I'm like, holy shit. And I have a little tape recorder I always carried with me.
Mhm.
because of that stuff like this. So I just start recording this, right? As
Mhm.
soon as I hit record, all these guys with like cameras and lights start coming in, and they
This is probably right as Roth was, or he was leaving Roth's band.
beginning of Mr. Big, I was witnessing.
Okay.
This was the first meeting of Paul Gilbert and and Billy Sheehan.
Okay.
And they I have a tape of it, and they're just like rocking out on stuff like Purple Haze or whatever, and you
Uh,
know, doing this really amazing stuff. It was awesome.
yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So there's, I mean, yeah, I mean, and Paul Gilbert, I mean, he had the drill with the, he would have the drill bit with the picks on it, and,
Uh-huh.
and he was quite a
Even
character.
back then.
Yeah, he had the drill bit back then, and
Okay.
he yeah, he was just quite a character, and it was all about the flippancy of like fast guitar and you know perfect accuracy, and it was you know it was a different era.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. How many hours a day you think he shedded?
That year of my life, I just pretty much played all day every day. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, um, and yeah, I mean that year of my it was one of the best years of my life. I mean, just
Did you play with a lot of people?
I did, yeah. I was in a band called Dino's Revenge. It was named after the Dino dog from the
Of
Flintstones.
course.
uh, and I was the band leader was named Steve Amici. He was the son of the actor Don Amici.
Okay.
So that we had a sort of inside pass to Hollywood. We played, the typical clubs like Madame Wong's or these various clubs on the strip and all. And it was like I don't even remember how they. I mean, I was only there for a year, but somehow I was gigging and stuff. And um, I mean, I played with all those. I mean, my teachers I played with, but in terms of getting out and playing with people in the scene, I was just in a band playing with whoever was in that band.
Mhm.
And anybody famous except that the singer was the son of a movie star.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it was quite an experience out there. And another fun thing was I would try to study with Paul Gilbert. They had these things called open counseling, where it's like a room maybe about the size, half the size of this room or something, and the guy would be in there, and anyone could go in there and jam with him or talk to him or ask him questions.
Mhm.
But in Paul Gilbert's room, there'd be guys like crammed in there, like standing on top of the amps, and like guys like craning their necks around the corner in a room, people outside. You can't even get in there. I
Right.
look, I look across the hall. There's Jennifer Batten in a room all by herself.
Yeah.
Like I
This
think,
is probably before the days that she had her.
yes.
She looked like just a normal human being.
So at that time, Jennifer Batten was an awesome player, but
Yeah.
she had short, mousy brown hair,
Uh-huh.
and she wore just a regular T-shirt and jeans, ripped up jeans, and she was just an unassuming, regular kind of looking person.
Yeah.
And so I would go into her room and study with her instead of Paul Gilbert because it was basically impossible to get in there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that only lasted for a very brief time because the next time I saw Jennifer Batten, she had hair extensions. It was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like this
Michael Jackson
huge
got a hold of her.
and she was Michael Jackson, and she was out. But I got a chance to study with her a little bit before that, and yeah, so it was just really awesome. I just loved it.
So what did you do?
I'd go back and do it again.
Oh,
if I
yeah,
had
yeah.
leisure. And
Yeah, I got like Berkeley. You were
say that again.
you were MI, and I was Berkeley. I still have like yearly dreams of going back there. At the
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I've dreamed of going back. I mean, like I want to live
Sometimes
there.
I think that what's the saying that the like education is wasted on the youth. I don't know if I agree with that totally, but boy, would I do things differently now.
I buy a lot of lottery tickets, and I think about
Right.
what I'd do if I won, and I think I might just go back to college.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. 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 No, that was good Lord. So yeah, I'm all about learning. It's like, but okay. So when you left LA, did you go back to
Yes.
Baltimore area? What did you do then afterwards?
Yeah. I went back to Baltimore.
Okay.
At that point I joined. Well, to tell you the truth, the first thing I did was get a job, and I didn't have a job in music. I had to have some sort of job, so I just got a health food store cashier job, and I was a minimum wage cashier worker in a health food store,
Yeah.
and I thought, the very first job I can land in music, I'm going to take it. Because I didn't want to, obviously, I don't want to be health food cashier. It's not like, that's not why I started playing guitar.
That's right.
So I,
Are we live? Low.
okay, you just froze for a second. What's the last thing you heard me say?
Health food. You got a health food gig?
Okay. Yeah. So I didn't want to be a health food cashier because that's not the reason I started playing.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself,
Not rock and roll at all.
Not rock and roll at all. I said, I'll take the first job I can get in music. Looked on the bulletin board of the health food store, and it said country and western bass player wanted.
Ooh wee.
So I took it.
That is my gig.
That was my first, and I was in a band called the Reeves Brothers. They had a few hits on the Cashbox, the country Cashbox charts or whatever.
Okay.
I was just their bass player. They would pay me $50 a night, and it was the easiest gig in the world. It was like, well, all I had to do was show up with a bass literally 5 minutes before the gig starts, because they would put an amp on stage for me and everything would already be set up.
Yeah.
I'd walk in, pick, plug in and start playing. The songs were so darn easy. I think we rehearsed once and that was it. And we played all over the place, and it was $50 a night, and we might have played 5 nights a week. It gave me enough money to have a little apartment or whatever. And after that, I got in not a better band, but I got into guitar in a band called Toys, which was a touring agency booked band that we played 7 nights a week, sometimes even a double. So and we played everything from the corporate parties to all the bars and stuff. And one time we were the backup band for the Coasters.
All right.
So I played guitar, ended up playing guitar for the Coasters. Now that was hilarious, dude, because we were touring around, and one of the stops, we were on the road where we would be in a hotel for like 6 nights, stay up, play every night, and then go to another hotel, stay set up, play every night. But between this thing, we had to go play and be the band of the Coasters.
All right.
And our music contract said that we would get a rehearsal with the music director, and we would be informed as to what we were doing. So it keeps getting closer and closer to the date. We get no information at all about what we're supposed to be doing, like what songs we're playing, anything. And I remember being at some place, and I was like, well, there's a mall over there. So I walked over there and I bought the Coasters' greatest hits on a cassette tape. And I was like, I guess I'm just going to learn this because it's all I can do, because the gig's tomorrow, right? So I learned it, and I passed it around to the rest of the band. I wasn't the leader, but I did that. Anyway, we're waiting for this. Finally, the Coasters management call us. They're like, go to this ballroom and you meet the music director. So we go there, and some guy's like, he's like, okay, it's time to rehearse. This show starts in like 50 minutes or something.
All right.
It's like, right. So the guy, he puts music in front of us, sheet music.
Adaptation. That is what we learned. We learned to adapt.
We learned to adapt. He puts sheet music in front of us. I'm the only one in the band that does any reading, and I'm not too good at it because I'm still young at that point. I'm only like 23 or something, or 24. Yeah. So like, anyway, I can read, but I can't read fast in front of an audience,
You're no Rod Gels.
Right. I'm no Rod Gels. I couldn't do it. Anyway, nobody could do it. Yeah. So this guy had put all the Coasters songs are just like 1, 6, 4, 5 progressions in easy keys, like G or something, on their greatest hits. This guy had got them all jazzed out with like 13 chords and keys with flats and all this stuff. Anyway, the band leader just goes to him, he goes, "We don't do this." That's what the band leader said to the music director. His name was Frank Starchek. And then we just went out there and we just took over. We just like, they called a tune, we just played it the way we play it, by ear, a 1-6-4-5. They would me to take guitar solos. We played great. The Coasters wanted us to be their permanent backup band. They tried to hire us, hire the other guy, but we were too committed with other contracts, so we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we just sort of jammed. That's what they actually wanted. They didn't want all this weird. You don't need all those absurd
Broccoli chords.
You don't need extended chords and stuff if you're just playing doo-wop,
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had that experience, and I had my own band for a while. I did all this Zen guitar stuff. I became involved in the Zen guitar movement.
Yeah.
I played some Zen guitar festivals in Manhattan, released a few Zen guitar things. That's right. And the Book of Six Strings was co-written by myself and Toshio Sudo, who wrote the best-selling book Zen Guitar, which
I have that one too.
It's a great book.
Yeah. How much did he write in this book? This book?
Oh, well, that book, Philip Sudo didn't really write very much of it, and I wish he would have written more of it. What happened was, so I read Zen Guitar.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Zen Guitar. And there was one chapter in Zen Guitar where it said, just start playing without thinking and see what comes out. And I did that, and I just started this lick that went like. Drumming on the guitar. I was like drumming on the guitar naturally, kind of. Yeah. And anyway, then that turned into the nucleus of a song that I wrote, which I called Zen Guitar.
Yeah.
I made a couple of fills and licks and a little intro and a little outro and made it into a song. And, what the heck? Maybe I'll just send it to this guy, Philip Sudo, and just say, hey, I wrote your exercise, maybe write a song.
Yeah.
So I did that. And somehow this was back in the dawn of the internet, almost. Not the dawn of the internet, but it was when you could email somebody and they would email you back. And anyway, so I sent him an MP3, I guess, and he's like, hey, I like that. And we just started corresponding and being kind of like pen pals or whatever. And, I started selling his book to my students and recommending it to people. And then he contacted me because he'd written a number of Zen books, but Zen Guitar was his kind of first one that sold the best, and he really felt more connected to it. He wanted to write a sequel to Zen Guitar.
He was a guitar player?
Oh yes, Philip Sudo was a guitar player.
So he wasn't just the guy that wrote about Zen and.
Not at all. Philip Sudo was a sort of an avid guitar player, not the way you and I are.
Okay.
He had a very pure kind of approach to guitar, and he had one song he played, which is called One Sound, One Song, but it had 12 different sort of movements within it. And he would go into the New York subway. He had a dual residency between Manhattan and Hawaii.
Okay.
And his thing was he would go into the New York subway and be a street musician and play his Zen guitar, kind of like samurai street punk guitar.
Okay.
And he would just do this, and it didn't matter to him if anyone was listening or how many people were listening. He would just, and he explained it like, I've never met anybody that basically just played one song. It was insane.
Right. Okay.
And I would be talking to him about it, be like, just play one song. He goes, Tobias, how many songs does a bird have? One. It's me. It's what I do. And that's my Zen guitar.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yes, he played guitar, and you can get his album. It's called Zen Guitar, and it's very good. And he played, this album has a good drummer named Salvatore Principato, who's another New Yorker guy. And it was like, so he took his thing and he could do it with a rock band, or he could do it just by himself. And so anyway, he released an album of it, but shortly after he contacted me to write the book with him, at first my role was just going to be that since he didn't know how to read and write music or music theory,
You'd be
wanted
the
me to notate his stuff and to explain what modes and so forth it was in, so that he would basically write the book, and I would be the guy that
made sense of it.
that wrote down this, did the transcribing and the analyzing, and maybe did a little bit of philosophizing. And
Hmm.
I said, well, how are you going to have? I mean, this is in your voice. How are we going to have me write something that's in your voice? He goes, well, I'll introduce you like you're one of my lieutenants. Like he's all into the samurai thing.
Hmm.
The samurai would have what they call retainers, or a sort of hierarchy of people under the shogun, and I would be one of those people, and I would take over and write a section of the book here and there, and that was how he was going to sort of do it.
Okay.
And, however, we got into this and we started to, get all kinds of ideas. I would go to Manhattan and hang out with him and jam with him and, talk, and he'd send videos and sound clips, and we take all these notes and get all these concepts. And, but then he was diagnosed with stomach cancer during this process. And he wrote the introduction. What it came down to is he died of stomach cancer during the process of writing the book.
Hmm.
And at the time that he died, he had not really written very much of the book. What he had written was the introduction to the book, and he had written a table of contents, so that what each chapter would be called, what order they would come in, and what the chapters were. And he also had a big notebook full of like handwritten notes of his ideas and written stuff. So what I had to work with was his introduction, his table of contents, and his handwritten notes, and his music.
Then you
I had to basically write this book, and I really
wonderful one. It's wonderful.
well, it's wonderful, but I wish I hadn't, because I think it would have been a way better book if he would have written it.
Yeah, but it's
You know, but I'm still happy, very happy that I did it. And
yeah, but I think that is like that is something that is a book that I can get into.
cool, thank you.
Yeah, I'd suggest it to anyone.
It's kind of
And
metaphor, like
both of them, the original one and the one that you wrote.
I would suggest that anybody should first read the original,
Mhm.
because the original has the sort of nucleus, the real kernel of the information.
Yeah,
Then
makes you want to study that culture.
what's that?
It makes you want to study that culture too.
You know what? I took this very seriously, and part of that taking it seriously was to study that culture.
Yes.
So as it so happened, I know that Zen is something that started in India and slowly migrated across China and then into Japan and then to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But I had previously been into Shaolin Kung Fu. So I'd studied Kung Fu for 5 years. So I was sort of a little into the energy and the sort of Eastern thought. So that the reason I read Zen guitar wasn't because I just happened to read Zen guitar. I'd been reading a million Zen books. I'd read like Alan Watts, and I'd read all these other, like the Book of Five. You may not know this, but the Book of Six Strings is a pun on the Book of Five Rings. Are you familiar with that?
No.
The Book of Five Rings is a samurai textbook written by the most sort of celebrated samurai warrior named Miyamoto Musashi. And he wrote his secrets, his samurai swordsmanship secrets, down in the book called the Book of Five Rings. It's like poetic, metaphorical Zen stuff to do with swordsmanship and cosmic warrior and all this stuff. Anyway, it's from like the 13th century. And so the Book of Six Strings is a pun on the Book of Five Rings.
Never knew.
Which is another. So I'd read all these books,
Mhm.
and then I read Zen guitar, and it was like, oh my God, this guy, he sort of just already believes everything I believe, but he's put it down in this like really nice.
So you were studying this before you met him?
I was studying Zen before I met him.
Okay.
Also studying Chinese Kung Fu, which is Buddhist, Shaolin
Yeah.
Temple Kung Fu.
Okay.
so before I met Philip Pseudo, I won't call myself a Zen scholar, but I'd maybe read 10 or 12 books on it or something.
Okay.
But then after, when I got the assignment of writing this book, I studied Japanese history, Indian history, Chinese history. I really immersed myself
Yeah.
to try to get just to try to have some feeling of deserving the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I did my best.
You saw yourself short. You did better than that. When did you start teaching? When did you start teaching?
When did I start teaching?
Yeah.
I think I started teaching almost the first day I started playing. I mean, I taught me 2 chords, and I think I might have taught those 2 chords to somebody else before I even knew 3 chords.
All right.
but when I guess I officially started like charging for lessons after graduating from GIT in 1987.
Okay. So it didn't occur to you that maybe I could make, you worked at the health food store
Yes.
and then you worked in the country band.
And I worked in the health food store, and I think I was trying to get some students at the time, but maybe I had like one, like when you started, it's really hard to get students.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have enough students to be
self-sufficient. Yes.
More, and so live playing, and I also wanted to play. Not that I don't want to play anymore, but
yeah,
when you're 23, anyway, it seems like a lot of people would go into the live playing more so than the teaching.
Well, when I left Berkeley, I was thinking I was going to be a rock star.
Yeah, like I remember,
So,
rock star moments,
Oh, I'm living a rock star, but it didn't unravel the way I imagined it would. We absolutely have rock star moments.
Yeah, we've all had our rock star moments, and
we had rock star moments together.
And we've had rock star moments together.
Yeah.
I wish you would have joined the Ravens band 2 years earlier, because it was the sort of seriously triumphant rock and roll moments, like I'll never forget the first time the rhythm section played just by itself in front of 80,000 people, like Purple Haze. And I remember putting the guitar behind my head, and I don't even know if I can do it right now, but I was like,
yeah.
I was playing the solo of the Purple Haze behind my head, and the damn stadium erupts in applause, like thunderous applause that like, makes it so you can't even hear your guitar.
You're not replaceable. You're not.
It was like total rock and roll.
Yeah.
So that feeling. Then that just kept happening for like 2 years, and as soon as you joined the band, for some reason it stopped. But it had nothing to do with you. It was
okay. Well, good.
But
good.
We're coming in right after. So we'd let things just go in cycles, man. Like, they loved us for 2 years, and it started to just go downhill from there.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget though the 7 Nation Army situation.
Remember I mean, my audition piece, as I refer to it.
Remember how mad they would get, like there'd be a guy with a headset.
Yeah.
Who was communicating.
His only job was to tell me to play 7 Nation Army.
He would point at you.
Yeah.
And you have to start playing 7 Nation Army, like immediate, no hesitation, just like it has to be immediate.
Yep.
And if you hesitate for even like 10 seconds, you're like getting chewed out like by a guy who's like red in the face with anger. Remember that?
Yep.
That was so funny. But
So when did you start writing? Tell us the story about that.
Writing books?
Yeah.
Well, as soon as I graduated from GIT, I always thought that, I wanted to be a rock star, but to me, stars were the people that wrote for the magazines. Because I was immersed in the magazine and book culture of guitar, which was a big culture.
We're both nerds that way.
I guess so.
I was in your basement. I've seen the stacks and stacks of Guitar Player magazines.
Yeah, so I was thinking, man, if I could just write for Guitar Player magazine or write one of these books, I'd be like,
that's rock star stuff.
My life is complete,
Right.
So
you and Larry Coryell.
Yeah. So I went to my musicians referral service at GIT and asked if I knew that the teachers wrote books. I thought, well, maybe I can get a book writing gig. Well, they didn't help me out.
Mhm.
So my uncle um, wrote art books. He was a bigwig at the Maryland Institute College of Art.
Mhm.
He wrote art books, and they were big nationally. They were used nationally by whole systems of schools and stuff. He was the director of teacher education at the institute. And I asked him, I said, hey, how do you get into this book writing thing? I mean, I play guitar and you do art, but you've written these books and I want to write. He goes, if you want to write, write.
Mhm. Which
And
is kind of Zen.
so I was like, this seems like either a total cop out or some really good advice. So I took his advice and I started writing. I thought, well, what book would I want to write if I wrote a book? And I thought, I'd like to write a book about how to figure out songs and write them down. Because when you buy a guitar book or a tab magazine, you're buying somebody else's version of a song. But what if you could just use your own ear,
Mhm.
figure out the song, then you could write it down.
Yeah.
I started writing a book called Learn How to Transcribe for Guitar.
All right.
Now I can grab it. I think I have a copy right here. If I don't, I'll be right back. Yeah, I do. So this is the first book I wrote. It's called Learn How to Transcribe for Guitar.
Mhm.
The thing is, this didn't come out for a long, long time after I started writing it, because what happened was, as you know from your knowledge of guitar magazines, there was that thing called Mechanics of Metal. You remember that? It showed a silhouette of a long-haired guy with a guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
For that, and it was called Mechanics of Metal. Anyway, it had little ads, and one of those little ads said writers needed, Mechanics of Metal.
All right.
So I called this ad up and I talked to some guy named Peter Greenfield, I think his name was, if I remember. Maybe it was Greenberg, I don't know. But anyway, he's like, Tobias, we want to see some samples. I'm like, I got samples, because my uncle had told me, if you want to write, write. So I had samples. So I sent him samples. We like your stuff. Now we want to hear you play. We want you to play some fast stuff. It was like the 80s.
Yeah.
So,
Wiggly fingers.
I send him a sample, and he's like, we'd like to hear it a little faster. So I send him more samples fast. We want to hear it faster and wilder. So I'm playing the fastest, wildest shred I can imagine.
Freak guitar.
Anyway, he's like, okay, we'll give you a contract. We want to see some more samples. So I've written practically the whole book in samples and made probably 20 or 30 blistering lick examples. So this guy and he says, okay, we'll send you a contract. So he sends me this contract that's so bad I can't even sign it. I've practically written the damn book, but he sends me, he goes, Tobias, we're going to put your name on the spine of the book and we're going to give you $1,800. I'm like, well, what about royalties or in advance? Oh no, we don't do that. What about an author's page with my picture and it have my album or something? No, we don't do that. Your name will be on the spine of the book and you get $1,800. I said, no thanks. But I practically had a book written because I worked so much for this guy. I'll bide my time and get a real deal.
Yeah.
Right? So at some point I started working for the National Guitar Workshop.
Mm-hmm.
The National Guitar Workshop in fact, you can see the little logo on this thing. See that logo?
Mm-hmm.
Guitar Workshop.
They had a summer stock or whatever.
Yes, they did. They were a large organization, and they employed all of my heroes, like Yngwie Malmsteen, Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai. They were all people that were employed by this organization. And a lot of the people in the organization wrote books. Anyway, I was eating in the cafeteria and I realized that I was eating across the table from the guy who was in charge of the whole publishing, sitting right at the table, just eating a sandwich with this guy. So his name was Nathaniel Gounod. He's still with us. Anyway, I just said, hey, Nat, how do you get into the publishing thing? He goes, show me some samples. We'll see what we can do. So I showed him samples. He goes, we like it. We'll give you a contract. And it had an advance, and it had royalties, and it had real distribution, and a real author's page. Like I could open this book and I could say, well, they put my picture in the book and a little blurb about me, and I got royalties in advance. And I even got mentioned in Guitar Player magazine that they were debuting my book at the NAMM show.
Yeah.
I'd never been to the NAMM show. So I thought, heck, if I've got a product in a NAMM show, I think I'll go to the NAMM show.
Right.
So I went to the NAMM show, and I thought I'll have a dual purpose here. I'll try to get my first endorsement deal of some kind.
Okay.
I thought, well, the easiest deal must be a string deal. So, and I think so I ended up with an Ernie Ball, I used Ernie Ball strings anyway. I've always used them, always liked them. Hendrix used them. George Harrison used them. Clapton used them. I mean, they're good strings. Yeah. So I went to the Ernie Ball booth and I just said, hey, here's my book, just came out. It's over there in that booth. How about a string endorsement deal? And they just said, yeah, and just gave me a nice deal. I still have it today.
Wow.
And so that's how I got started writing, basically. And then they kept sending me more and more contracts, and I did more and more books. So I guess when I got with Philip Pseudo, I already was a published author, which might have been part of the reason
why he was interested in.
He knew I could write.
You put yourself up in that. You lifted yourself up to the point where you were noticed. Yeah.
I was in the game of writing guitar books, just not. I mean, Simon & Schuster is the major big leagues of publishing. That book's. I mean, the book has sold like significantly over 100,000 copies. And I think,
out of the Zen guitar.
Yes,
it's a classic.
Yeah, so it's a classic. It sells itself and it doesn't go off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really, I mean, that's a major publication there. Anyway, so I was just delighted to be involved in that. It was really cool.
Yeah. Okay, one more question.
Okay.
Right off the top of your head, 5 influences that you have, right off the top.
Van Halen, Montoya, John McLaughlin, Carlos Montoya.
Okay, flamenco, classical.
Carlos Montoya is flamenco.
Yeah,
Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, what did I say? I said Van Halen, John McLaughlin, Carlos Montoya. We'll say Jimi Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Robert Fripp. I don't know.
Okay. We're gonna have to do this again. We're not done.
Yeah.
We're not done. But I want to thank you. And
thank you.
Yeah, we'll resume with this. We want to get into some of your recording artists too. So it's like we want to talk about that. So we'll leave that for another time.
For any of my stuff, all they have to do is tell Alexa to shuffle songs by Tobias Hurwitz or go on Spotify or platforms.
Yeah. Tobias Hurwitz is on Spotify, and you're in Alexa too.
All the platforms. Alexa.
She knows about you.
What's that?
She knows about you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks so much. Thank you so much.
So I sort of misunderstood what this thing. I thought this was going to be a Zoom call where people could interact with me and personally ask.
We can do that too. We can do that too.
Thing next time like that. I thought that's what this was this time.
Yeah. I'm open to anything.
Cool, man.
Anything. All right.
That's good. Well, thanks for having me, Rod. And cheers, buddy. And let's jam sometime, man.
Absolutely. We love guitar nerds. We are both guitar nerds.
We are both guitar nerds.
We should play.
We should.
Seriously. All righty. I will see you.
Signing off.
Thanks so much.